Hello and welcome, my dear listeners. I am so happy to have you here today. You are listening to Code Your English, a place where we help you improve your English, speaking, listening, and communication skills in a fun and easy way. If you are someone who wants to speak English fluently and confidently, then you are in the right place. Today, we have a very special topic. Think in English and speak fluently. Yes, that's right. Thinking in English is one of the most powerful ways to improve your fluency. If you have ever struggled with speaking quickly, finding the right words, or translating from your native language, then this episode is for you. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like this? You understand English well, but cannot speak fluently. You translate everything in your mind before speaking. You pause too much when speaking because you are looking for words. You feel nervous or afraid of making mistakes. If you said yes to any of these, don't worry. You are not alone. Many English learners face the same challenges. The good news is, you can train your brain to think in English, and I am going to show you how. Imagine this. What if you could think in English naturally, without translating? What if words and sentences just flowed smoothly when you speak? What if you felt confident and comfortable speaking English in any situation? Sounds amazing, right? Well, today, I will teach you simple, practical, and fun ways to train your brain to think in English so that speaking becomes easier and more fluent. In this episode, we will talk about why thinking in English is important for fluency, common challenges and how to overcome them, step-by-step techniques to start thinking in English, exercises to train your brain every day, how thinking in English leads to fluency and confidence. So, whether you are a student, a professional, or just someone who wants to speak English effortlessly, this podcast is going to change the way you learn and use English. Stay with me until the end, because I have some special exercises for you that will help you start thinking in English immediately. You don't want to miss them. Are you ready? Let's get started. Why thinking in English is important. Before we dive into why thinking in English is important, let's first understand what thinking really means. What is thinking? Thinking is the process of using your mind to understand, analyze, and interpret the world around you. Every day, we think about many things. We think about what to eat, what to wear, how to solve problems, how to express our feelings, and much more. Thinking happens naturally in our brains. It is an invisible but powerful process that helps us make decisions, plan actions, and communicate with others. Our thoughts can be in the form of words, images, or even feelings. Sometimes, when we try to remember something, we visualize it in our minds. Other times, when we are speaking or writing, we form words in our heads before we express them. Thinking is not just about solving big problems. Even simple things like remembering where you put your keys or deciding what to eat for dinner involve thinking. The way we think shapes our actions, our decisions, and even the way we communicate with others. What is thinking in English? Thinking in English means using the English language inside your mind when you process thoughts, ideas, and decisions. Instead of translating from your native language to English, you train your brain to think directly in English. This means that when you see an object, hear a word, or have an idea, your first reaction is in English, not in your native language. For example, imagine you see a tree. If your native language is Spanish, your first thought might be árbol, and then you translate it into tree in English. However, if you think in English, you will immediately recognize it as tree without needing to translate. This small change makes a huge difference in how fast and fluently you can speak. Thinking in English is an essential skill for improving fluency. It helps you become more natural in the language, respond faster in conversations, and gain confidence when speaking. Many learners struggle with speaking fluently because they translate every word in their heads before speaking. This slows down the conversation and makes it difficult to express thoughts smoothly. By training your brain to think in English, you eliminate this extra step, making communication much easier and more efficient. Why thinking in English is important? Thinking in English is important for many reasons. It helps learners improve their fluency, speak more naturally, and feel more confident when using the language. Let's explore some key reasons why thinking in English is a powerful skill for improving your speaking abilities. 1. Thinking in English speeds up your speaking. One of the biggest problems English learners face is speaking too slowly. When you translate every word in your mind before speaking, it takes extra time, making conversations slow and unnatural. Native speakers do not think and translate. They speak naturally and automatically. For example, imagine you are in a coffee shop and the barista asks, "What would you like to order?" If you think in your native language first, your thought process might be like this. Step 1. Translate the question into your language. Step 2. Think of the answer in your language. Step 3. Translate your answer into English. Step 4. Speak your answer in English. This takes a lot of time. But if you already think in English, your thought process will be: Step 1. Understand the question in English. Step 2. Form your answer in English. Step 3. Speak your answer in English. By removing the translation step, you respond faster and sound more fluent. 2. It helps you learn English naturally. Thinking in English allows you to learn the language in a natural way. Instead of memorizing grammar rules and translations, you start to feel the language just like a native speaker does. Babies learn languages naturally because they hear words, connect them to meanings, and start thinking in that language without needing translations. You can train your brain to do the same with English. For example, instead of memorizing that run means correr in Spanish or courir in French, you simply associate run with the action of running. When you hear the word run, you immediately think of the action instead of translating it into your native language. 3. Thinking in English helps you gain confidence. Many English learners feel nervous when they have to speak. They are afraid of making mistakes or not finding the right words. When you think in English, you feel more comfortable because you are not worrying about translation. Your brain gets used to forming sentences in English, making you more confident in conversations. Imagine you are at a party and someone asks you, "Where are you from?" If you have been thinking in English, you can quickly respond, "I'm from Brazil," without hesitation. However, if you have been thinking in your native language, you might pause, translate, and then speak, which can make you feel nervous or unsure. Confidence comes with practice, and thinking in English is one of the best ways to build that confidence. 4. It improves your listening skills. When you think in English, your brain becomes more familiar with the language. This makes it easier to understand native speakers when they talk. Many learners struggle with listening because they hear words in English, translate them into their native language, and then try to understand the meaning. This process is slow and can cause confusion, especially when native speakers talk fast. For example, if you are watching an English movie and you hear the phrase, "Let's grab a bite," you might get stuck if you try to translate every word. But if you think in English, your brain will recognize the phrase as a common way to say, "Let's go eat something." Thinking in English helps you understand faster and enjoy conversations without struggling to keep up. 5. Thinking in English helps you sound more natural. When you translate from your native language, your sentences may sound unnatural or incorrect. Different languages have different sentence structures and expressions. If you think in English, your sentences will follow natural English patterns, making your speech more accurate and fluent. For example, in some languages, people might say, "How many years do you have?" to ask someone's age. But in English, we say, "How old are you?" If you think in English, you will automatically use the correct sentence instead of translating it word by word. 6. It makes English part of your daily life. If you want to be fluent in English, it must become a part of your everyday life. Thinking in English helps you stay connected to the language even when you are not in class or practicing with others. The more you think in English, the easier it becomes to use it in real-life situations. For example, when you wake up, instead of thinking, "Tengo que levantarme," Spanish for "I have to get up," you can train yourself to think, "I have to get up." When you see an object, instead of naming it in your native language, say it in English. Over time, this practice will help you become fluent effortlessly. Thinking in English is a powerful tool for fluency. It helps you speak faster, learn naturally, gain confidence, improve listening skills, sound more natural, and make English part of your daily life. The more you train your brain to think in English, the closer you get to fluency. In the next section, we will talk about common challenges that learners face when trying to think in English and how to overcome them. Stay tuned. Common challenges of thinking in English and how to overcome them. Thinking in English can be one of the most significant hurdles for English learners. Many people who are learning English struggle to break away from thinking in their native language and translating everything in their heads before speaking or writing. This process can slow down communication and make the language learning journey more challenging. In this script, we will explore common challenges learners face when trying to think in English and provide practical solutions to overcome these obstacles. 1. Translating from your native language. One of the most common challenges for English learners is the habit of translating from their native language into English. This occurs because learners are not yet comfortable enough with English to directly think in the language. When a person translates word by word, it can lead to confusion, mistakes, and delays in communication. Solution. The key to overcoming this challenge is practice. To stop translating, you need to immerse yourself in English as much as possible. This can be done by listening to English podcasts, watching English TV shows, or reading books in English. When you're constantly exposed to English, you'll begin to associate words and phrases with their meanings rather than their translations. Over time, your brain will start to form direct connections between ideas and English words, which reduces the need for translation. Another effective technique is to practice thinking in English throughout your day. For example, when you're walking or doing chores, try to describe what you're doing in English. The more you practice thinking directly in English, the easier it will become to avoid translating. 2. Limited vocabulary. A limited vocabulary is another challenge that can make it difficult to think in English. If you don't know enough words to express yourself, you might find yourself stuck or frustrated when trying to form thoughts in English. This can lead to hesitation, which disrupts the flow of communication. Solution: to overcome this issue, you need to continuously expand your vocabulary. One of the most effective ways to build your vocabulary is to learn new words in context. Rather than memorizing isolated words, focus on learning them in phrases or sentences. For example, if you're learning the word beautiful, try to use it in various sentences like, "The sunset is beautiful," or "She wore a beautiful dress." This will help you understand how the word fits into different contexts, making it easier to remember and use. Additionally, keep a vocabulary notebook or use apps like Anki or Quizlet to review new words regularly. Practice speaking or writing sentences with these words to ensure that you remember them and can use them naturally when you think in English. 3. Fear of making mistakes. Many learners hesitate to think in English because they're afraid of making mistakes. This fear can be paralyzing, causing them to avoid speaking or thinking in English altogether. As a result, they stay stuck in their native language and don't progress in their ability to think directly in English. Solution: the fear of making mistakes is normal, but it is essential to embrace errors as part of the learning process. One of the best ways to overcome this fear is by practicing in a safe and supportive environment. Join English-speaking groups, practice with friends, or work with a tutor who can correct your mistakes gently. When you make mistakes, use them as learning opportunities rather than feeling discouraged. Additionally, remind yourself that native speakers make mistakes too. Even though they may have a higher level of fluency, no one speaks perfectly all the time. Instead of focusing on the mistake, focus on the progress you've made. Celebrate each step forward, no matter how small. 4. Overthinking and mental block. When trying to think in English, many learners experience mental blocks. This happens when you're overthinking, trying to form the perfect sentence, or worrying too much about grammar. As a result, your brain gets stuck, and you can't express your thoughts clearly. Overthinking can cause stress and make it harder to think in English. Solution: to avoid overthinking, you should aim for fluency rather than perfection. It's essential to get your thoughts out quickly and then correct them later. Start by speaking or writing simple sentences without worrying too much about making them perfect. Focus on fluency and clarity first, and grammar second. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will become, and the less you will overthink your language use. To further reduce mental blocks, try to relax and give yourself time. Think of your thoughts in English as you would in your native language, without obsessing over grammar or vocabulary. This mental shift helps ease the pressure and allows you to express yourself more naturally. 5. Not enough speaking practice. Another challenge learners face is not having enough opportunities to speak English. Without consistent speaking practice, it's hard to build the confidence needed to think in English in real-time situations. When you don't have the chance to speak often, your brain may struggle to recall the words and phrases you need, making thinking in English more difficult. Solution: to overcome this challenge, make speaking practice a part of your daily routine. You can do this by finding language exchange partners, joining English conversation clubs, or simply talking to yourself in English. It may feel awkward at first, but the more you practice speaking, the more natural it will become. You can also record yourself speaking in English on various topics, listen to the recording, and evaluate areas where you can improve. This practice can help you build confidence and encourage your brain to think in English without hesitation. 6. Inconsistent practice. Inconsistent practice is another barrier to thinking in English. If you only practice occasionally, your brain won't have enough time to develop the habit of thinking in English. Without consistency, you may continue to revert to your native language when thinking, which slows down your progress. Solution: consistency is the key to overcoming this challenge. Try to incorporate English into your daily life as much as possible. Set aside specific times each day to practice, even if it's just for 15 to 20 minutes. This could be through reading, listening to podcasts, watching movies, or speaking. The more regularly you expose yourself to English, the easier it will become to think in English naturally. You could also make English practice a part of your routine. For instance, if you're traveling to work or school, try to think about how you would describe your surroundings in English. This constant exposure will train your brain to think in English over time. 7. Difficulty with complex thoughts. As you become more comfortable with basic English, you may face difficulty thinking about more complex ideas in English. When trying to express abstract thoughts, emotions, or technical topics, the lack of advanced vocabulary or grammar structures can hinder your ability to think effectively in English. Solution: to handle complex thoughts, focus on building your understanding of advanced English through reading, writing, and speaking. Engage with materials that challenge you, like academic articles, TED Talks, or books on various subjects. As you encounter new, complex vocabulary and sentence structures, try to use them in your own speaking and writing. Additionally, it can be helpful to break down complex ideas into simpler components. When thinking about a complicated subject in English, try to explain it in simpler terms first, and gradually build up your complexity as you gain more vocabulary and understanding. This method will help you feel more confident when dealing with complex topics in English. Thinking in English is a skill that develops over time with consistent effort, practice, and patience. By addressing common challenges like translating from your native language, limited vocabulary, fear of mistakes, overthinking, lack of speaking practice, inconsistent practice, and difficulty with complex thoughts, you can gradually train your brain to think directly in English. Remember that every mistake is a step forward, and every practice session brings you closer to fluency. By integrating English into your daily life and practicing regularly, You will improve your ability to think in English naturally, making communication smoother and more confident. Step-by-step methods to think in English. Thinking in English is one of the most effective ways to improve your fluency and comprehension. It reduces the time needed to translate in your mind and allows you to become more natural and confident in conversations. To achieve this, you need to incorporate a series of gradual steps that will guide you towards thinking directly in English. Let's explore a variety of step-by-step methods that can help you master this valuable skill. 1. Start with simple vocabulary. The first step in thinking in English is building a solid foundation of simple vocabulary. It's important to begin by learning words that are relevant to your everyday life. Start with basic nouns, verbs, adjectives, and prepositions. For instance, if you are learning how to talk about your day, focus on words like eat, sleep, work, go, home, coffee, and phone. As you learn new words, try to use them in sentences or phrases. For example, instead of thinking, "I need to eat lunch," think, "I'm hungry. I want lunch." The goal is to form thoughts in English immediately without relying on your native language. This will train your brain to connect English words to ideas directly, without the need for translation. Practice describing everyday situations. To get accustomed to thinking in English, start practicing descriptions of everyday situations. This helps you to become more comfortable with forming sentences and building thoughts in the language. You can start by describing what's happening around you or what you are doing at the moment. For example, if you are in your kitchen, think, "I'm in the kitchen. I see the stove. There are some vegetables on the counter. I'm going to make lunch." You can practice this technique during different activities like walking outside, cooking, or cleaning. The idea is to narrate your actions, surroundings, and thoughts in English. The more you practice describing simple things in English, the more natural it will feel to think in the language. 3. Use English for your inner dialogue. One powerful method to improve your ability to think in English is to start using English for your inner dialogue. Your inner dialogue is the conversation you have with yourself in your mind throughout the day. Instead of thinking in your native language, make a conscious effort to think in English. This method can be challenging at first, but it is extremely beneficial in the long run. For instance, when you're making decisions, ask yourself questions in English. What should I wear today? Or, should I go to the gym? When you feel frustrated, think to yourself, "I'm feeling frustrated. How can I solve this problem?" Over time, this technique will help you start thinking in English without translating from your native language. As your inner dialogue becomes more natural in English, it will spill over into your conversations with others. 4. Engage in English immersion. Immersion is one of the most effective ways to develop the habit of thinking in English. Immersing yourself in an English-speaking environment helps you to get used to hearing and using English in various contexts. The more you surround yourself with English, the more your brain will start processing the language without conscious effort. You can immerse yourself by listening to English podcasts, watching movies or TV shows, reading books, or interacting with native speakers. When you engage with English in these different ways, your brain will start associating English with real-life situations, making it easier to think in the language. Try to do this every day for at least 30 minutes to an hour. whether it's through listening or reading. 5. Focus on thinking in full sentences. Once you become comfortable with vocabulary and phrases, the next step is to focus on forming complete sentences. It's important to think in full sentences instead of isolated words. When you're learning English, it's tempting to think in isolated words, but this will limit your ability to speak naturally. By thinking in complete sentences, you improve your ability to communicate fluidly and confidently. For example, instead of just thinking, coffee, try thinking, I need a cup of coffee before work. By gradually using full sentences, you will help your brain adapt to processing English in a more natural, conversational way. Over time, your ability to form sentences quickly will become automatic, and you'll be able to hold fluid conversations without hesitation. 6. Challenge yourself with thought exercises. Another way to improve your thinking in English is by doing thought exercises. These exercises encourage your brain to process information in English and can be a great way to practice thinking more quickly in the language. One exercise you can try is to pick a random topic and think about it in English for a few minutes. It could be something simple, like your favorite hobby, your daily routine, or what you plan to do in the future. For example, you could start thinking about your plans for the weekend. On Saturday, I want to visit a museum. I will take the bus. I'm excited to see the new exhibition. I'll meet my friend Anna there. We will have lunch afterward. By practicing these thought exercises regularly, you can gradually train your brain to think in English naturally. You can increase the difficulty of these exercises as you progress by discussing more complex topics or trying to hold a mental conversation with yourself in English. 7. Practice speaking out loud. Speaking out loud in English can also help you practice thinking in the language. If you're alone, you can practice by talking to yourself about various things. This could be anything from explaining what you are doing at the moment to expressing your thoughts about something you recently read or watched. For instance, if you just watched a movie, try saying to yourself, "The movie was great. I liked the plot and the characters. I didn't expect the ending. It was really surprising." Speaking out loud helps your brain associate the thoughts with the spoken language, which is crucial for thinking in English and eventually speaking fluently. 8. Use visual cues to trigger English thoughts. One way to assist with thinking in English is by associating objects, actions, or scenes with English words. Visual cues can trigger specific thoughts in English, which helps you practice forming ideas in the language. For example, when you look at an apple, think about the word apple in English without translating it into your native language. Try to place visual cues around your environment. Label objects in your home with their English names, or keep a list of things you commonly see throughout the day, like books, desk, lamp, and so on. This method strengthens your connection between the object and its English word, helping you bypass translation and think directly in English. 9. Be patient and consistent. Thinking in English is a skill that develops over time, so it's essential to be patient with yourself. Don't expect to be able to think in English fluently right away. It's a gradual process, and the more you practice, the easier it will become. Consistency is key. Set aside time every day to practice these techniques, even if it's only for a short period. Over time, You will notice improvements in your ability to think in English naturally. 10. Review and reflect regularly. It's important to regularly review your progress and reflect on how far you've come in thinking in English. Every week or so, take a moment to evaluate your experience. Ask yourself questions like, do I think in English more than before? Or, do I feel more comfortable forming thoughts and sentences in English? Tracking your progress helps you identify areas where you need improvement and reinforces the habits you've built. Reflecting on your progress gives you motivation and reinforces the idea that thinking in English is something you can continue to improve with time. Exercises to train your brain to think in English. Thinking in English is one of the most effective ways to improve your fluency in the language. When you think in English, you bypass the process of translating from your native language, making conversations faster and more natural. Developing the habit of thinking in English requires time and consistent practice, but with the right exercises, you can make this transition smoother and faster. Below are several exercises designed to help you train your brain to think in English. 1. Label your environment. One of the easiest and most practical ways to start thinking in English is by labeling your surroundings. This exercise involves writing the English names of everyday objects around your house, office, or wherever you spend time. You can use sticky notes to label items like door, window, refrigerator, television, and book. Every time you look at these objects, try to think of them in English without translating them from your native language. Over time, you'll begin to recognize these words instantly and form connections in your brain between the object and its English term. As a variation, you can label things in your environment with more descriptive phrases or sentences. For example, instead of simply writing refrigerator, you can write, "The refrigerator keeps food cold." This not only helps you think in English, but also improves your sentence construction and vocabulary. 2. Think in English for a set amount of time. Set aside a specific time each day when you actively focus on thinking in English. You can start with 5 or 10 minutes, gradually increasing the time as you become more comfortable. During this time, refrain from using your native language at all. Try to think about anything: your plans for the day, what you did yesterday, what you want to eat for lunch, etc. As you practice, you'll start noticing that your brain will naturally begin to think in English rather than your first language. To enhance this exercise, try thinking about your thoughts in English and then verbalizing them. For instance, if you're planning your day, say to yourself, "I will have breakfast at 8 o'clock. Then I will go to the gym." This will help you align your thoughts and language, leading to smoother communication. 3. Describe everything around you. Choose an object or scene in your environment and describe it in English. For example, if you're sitting in a park, describe the trees, the people around you, the weather, and the sounds you hear. Try to be as detailed as possible and avoid switching to your native language. This exercise helps you to improve your vocabulary and allows you to form sentences without having to translate them from your mother tongue. The more you practice this exercise, the easier it will be for your brain to process thoughts in English. Instead of searching for words in your native language and translating, you'll begin to directly associate English words with their meanings, helping you think in English faster. Fourth, engage in silent conversations in English. Engage in silent conversations in your head, as if you were speaking with someone in English. You can imagine having a conversation with a friend, family member, or even a fictional character. Practice using common phrases and expressions that would typically be used in daily conversations, such as, "How are you?" or "What did you do today?" Try to imagine both sides of the conversation, responding naturally and without hesitation. The goal is to think about what you would say in English and how you would respond without switching to your native language. This exercise trains your brain to form responses in English automatically. 5. Write a journal in English. Writing in English is a powerful exercise to train your brain to think in English. Keep a daily journal where you write about your thoughts, feelings, activities, or anything else that comes to mind. The key is to write in English without relying on translation tools or your native language. This exercise forces you to organize your thoughts and express them in English, helping to reinforce the language structure and vocabulary. You can start with simple sentences, like describing what you did that day, and then gradually challenge yourself to write more complex ideas. As you write, try not to stop and search for words in your native language. Instead, make use of a dictionary or thesaurus to find the right English words. The more you write, the more you'll become comfortable thinking and expressing yourself in English. 6. Listen to English content and mimic. Listening to English content, such as podcasts, news broadcasts, or YouTube videos, and mimicking what you hear is a great exercise for training your brain to think in English. As you listen to native speakers, pay attention to their pronunciation, tone, and the way they form sentences. Try to mimic their speech, repeating phrases and sentences after them. This helps improve your listening skills and pronunciation, but it also helps you become more familiar with the natural flow of the language. Over time, you'll start thinking in English by internalizing the way native speakers talk and respond in various situations. 7. Use English dictionaries. Rather than relying on a dictionary in your native language, switch to using an English dictionary. When you encounter a new word, look it up in English and try to understand its meaning based on other English words and context clues. This method forces you to engage with the language in English, rather than depending on translations from your native language. The process of reading definitions in English, hearing examples of how words are used in sentences, and practicing new vocabulary will help your brain get used to thinking and processing information in English directly. This exercise also encourages you to think about the meaning of words in English, rather than translating them from your first language. 8. Watch movies and TV shows without subtitles. Watching English language movies and TV shows is an excellent way to expose yourself to natural English conversation. To challenge yourself, try watching them without subtitles. At first, this might be difficult, but as you become more accustomed to the language, you'll start understanding the meaning without needing to translate. During this exercise, try to follow the plot and pick up new phrases, idioms, and expressions. After watching, reflect on what you saw and try to summarize the plot in English. This exercise trains your brain to process English in real time and boosts your ability to think in English quickly and fluidly. 9. Think in English while doing daily tasks. While you go about your daily activities, make a conscious effort to think in English. Whether you're cooking, cleaning, walking, or running errands, try to describe what you're doing in English. For instance, while cooking, you could say, "Now I'm chopping the onions. Then I'll fry them in the pan." This makes it easier for your brain to transition to English, and it reinforces vocabulary related to various activities. By doing this throughout the day, you will consistently engage with English, making it a part of your routine. Over time, this will help develop the habit of thinking in English without even realizing it. 10th, practice speaking out loud. The final exercise to train your brain to think in English is to practice speaking out loud, even when you're alone. For example, if you're at home and no one is around, try to narrate your thoughts, explain something you're doing, or talk about your day in English. Speaking out loud forces your brain to think quickly in English, as you won't have the time to translate from your native language. Try to speak in full sentences rather than just individual words. This helps improve your fluency and trains your brain to form thoughts directly in English. It also provides a chance to improve your pronunciation and sentence structure. Training your brain to think in English is a gradual process, but with consistent practice and dedication, you will start to notice a significant improvement in your ability to think and speak naturally in the language. The key is to immerse yourself in English as much as possible, engaging in exercises that challenge your brain to make connections between thoughts and the language itself. Incorporating these exercises into your daily routine will help you develop a more fluid and confident approach to thinking in English, leading to greater fluency and better communication skills. How thinking in English leads to fluency. Fluency in English, like any other language, isn't just about memorizing vocabulary or understanding grammar rules. It's about making the language a natural part of your thought process. The ability to think directly in English, without the need to translate from your native language, is a crucial step in achieving true fluency. This transition can dramatically improve your speaking, listening, and writing skills. Let's explore how thinking in English can lead to fluency and why it's one of the most effective strategies for mastering the language. The connection between thinking and language fluency. When we speak or write in a language, we need to form sentences quickly and naturally. If we are translating each word from our native language into English in our minds, it slows down the process, making it sound unnatural and hesitant. Fluency involves thinking in English directly, which allows for smoother, quicker communication. This is because the brain no longer needs to translate. It can simply access the English words and structures instantly. Thinking in English involves a shift in how the brain processes the language. Instead of seeing English as a foreign language that requires translation, it becomes an active and dynamic tool for communication. This mental shift allows learners to access a deeper understanding of the language, making it easier to construct sentences, understand idiomatic expressions, and use the correct tenses and vocabulary without hesitation. Benefits of thinking in English. 1. Quicker response. Times. One of the most immediate benefits of thinking in English is that it significantly speeds up response times. In a conversation, the ability to understand a question and immediately formulate an answer is essential. If you're constantly translating from your native language, you will find yourself lagging behind the conversation, missing out on the flow of ideas. Thinking in English allows you to process information and respond without the delay that translation often causes. This is particularly important in real-world situations, where timely responses are necessary to keep the conversation going smoothly. 2. Better pronunciation and intonation. When you think in English, you start to internalize the rhythm and melody of the language. This mental immersion helps you to mimic the natural intonation, stress patterns, and pronunciation used by native speakers. For example, English has specific stress patterns in sentences and words, and thinking in English trains your mind to produce these patterns more accurately. As a result, your speaking becomes more fluid and natural, rather than sounding like a word-for-word translation. 3. Improved vocabulary and idiomatic use. Thinking in English also opens the door to a broader range of vocabulary. Instead of focusing on memorizing lists of words, you begin to recognize which words fit naturally into different contexts. This helps you to use more appropriate and varied vocabulary in everyday conversations. Furthermore, idiomatic expressions and phrasal verbs become easier to understand and use. These expressions are often difficult for learners to grasp because they don't always make sense when translated literally. However, when you think in English, you start to understand these phrases as part of the language's culture and structure. 4. Reduced mental stress. Translation can be mentally exhausting. Constantly switching between languages puts additional cognitive pressure on the brain. The act of translating requires a lot of energy and concentration, which can make it difficult to keep up in conversations. On the other hand, when you think in English, the language flows more effortlessly. You no longer need to focus on finding the right translation or worrying about making mistakes in grammar or vocabulary. Your mind becomes more relaxed, and your ability to speak confidently improves. 5. Strengthened grammar skills. Another major advantage of thinking in English is that it reinforces your understanding of grammar. Grammar isn't something you simply learn and memorize. It's something you practice regularly. By thinking in English, you automatically begin to apply grammatical rules in real-time situations. For example, when you form a sentence, your mind subconsciously recalls proper sentence structure, verb tenses, articles, and prepositions. This repeated practice helps you internalize these rules, so you don't need to consciously think about grammar while speaking or writing. Over time, you become more comfortable and consistent with grammar. 6. Enhanced listening skills. When you start thinking in English, your ability to understand spoken English improves. Native speakers don't usually translate their thoughts into their native language before speaking. They simply express themselves in English. By thinking in English, you start to tune your brain to process the language in the same way. This means you'll find it easier to understand conversations, movies, news broadcasts, and other forms of spoken English, because your brain is no longer busy translating each word, but instead processing the language as it is intended. How to start thinking in English. Transitioning from thinking in your native language to thinking in English may take some time, but with practice, it becomes second nature. Here are a few strategies to help you start thinking in English. 1. Label your environment. Start by labeling objects around your home or workplace with their English names. For example, you could place a label on the door, fridge, desk, or mirror with the English word for each item. This simple technique helps you associate everyday objects with their English counterparts and reminds your brain to start thinking in English when interacting with these objects. 2. Practice inner dialogue in English. Pay attention to the thoughts running through your mind. Instead of thinking in your native language, challenge yourself to think in English. This can be as simple as describing what you see, feel, or are doing at the moment. For instance, if you're walking to the store, try to think, "I'm walking to the store to buy some groceries. I hope they have the apples I like." By consciously shifting your internal monologue to English, you reinforce the habit of thinking in the language. 3. Engage in English immersion. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Listen to podcasts, watch movies, read books, or follow social media accounts in English. The more exposure you have to the language, the more likely you are to start thinking in it. Additionally, try to interact with native speakers or other learners in English, whether through language exchange programs, online forums, or conversation clubs. Real-life conversations are especially helpful for training your brain to process language without translating. 4. Start small and gradually increase complexity. If thinking in English feels difficult at first, start with simple tasks. For example, practice thinking about basic activities like your daily routine, food preferences, or simple tasks like shopping. As you become more comfortable, you can start thinking about more complex topics, such as your career, future plans, or abstract ideas. This gradual progression will help you build confidence in your ability to think in English without feeling overwhelmed. Thinking in English is one of the most powerful ways to enhance your language skills and achieve fluency. It allows you to respond more quickly, speak more naturally, and understand English on a deeper level. By transitioning your thought process from your native language to English, you will find that communication becomes easier, more confident, and more intuitive. Although it takes practice and patience, the benefits of thinking in English are well worth the effort. The more you immerse yourself in the language and make it a natural part of your mental processes, the more fluent you will become. Encouragement and motivation for thinking in English and speaking fluently. Learning to think in English is not just about memorizing vocabulary or practicing grammar rules. It's about changing the way your mind works when it comes to using the language. It's about making English a natural part of your daily life. If you are reading this and feeling a bit nervous or unsure if you can really achieve fluency, I want to remind you of something very important. Fluency is not something that happens overnight, but with consistent effort and patience, it absolutely is possible. You might have heard the saying, "Rome wasn't built in a day." This is true for learning any new skill, including a language. There will be times when you feel like you are not improving as fast as you'd like, but do not give up. Every day you spend thinking and speaking in English is a step closer to becoming the fluent speaker you dream of being. Progress may be slow at times, but even small improvements add up to big results. So, keep going. Here are a few encouraging thoughts to keep you motivated as you work on your English fluency. 1. You are not alone. Many people feel frustrated or discouraged when they're learning a language. Everyone has gone through it. Even the most fluent speakers had to start somewhere. It's completely normal to make mistakes. Mistakes are not failures. They are a natural part of learning. Every time you make a mistake and correct it, you are one step closer to fluency. Fluency does not mean perfection. It means being able to communicate clearly and confidently, even if it's not always perfect. 2. Your effort is building a solid foundation. Remember that fluency is a result of habitual practice. The more you think in English, the more comfortable it becomes. In fact, you might not even realize how much progress you're making because it's happening gradually. Each new sentence you form in English, each new word you understand, each time you express your thoughts in English, you are building a strong foundation. In time, this will become second nature to you. 3. Keep challenging yourself every day. It might feel uncomfortable at first to think in English, especially if you're not used to it. But think of it this way. Comfort zones are where growth does not happen. If you want to improve, you need to push yourself a little bit every day. The more you push yourself to think in English, speak in English, and even make mistakes in English, the more progress you will see. Challenge yourself by doing things you feel are a bit difficult, like describing your day in English or thinking about a problem in English. Over time, this practice will become easier, and you'll find yourself speaking more fluently without even trying. 4. Be patient with yourself. One of the most important things to remember as you work toward fluency is that patience is key. You might feel frustrated sometimes, especially when you're not speaking as fluently as you want to. But don't rush the process. It's okay if it takes time. You are not competing with anyone else. You are on your own personal journey. Keep in mind that you are growing every single day. Patience with yourself leads to better results. 5. Focus on the progress, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect to be fluent in English. Think of fluency as a journey, not a final destination. Every time you practice speaking or thinking in English, you are becoming more fluent. Focus on the small wins. When you have a conversation without stopping to translate, when you can understand a movie or podcast without subtitles, when you speak more confidently than before, these are signs of progress. Celebrate every step forward, no matter how small. 6. Imagine your future self. Visualize yourself in the future. You are having a conversation with someone in English, and it feels natural. The words come to you without hesitation. You're expressing yourself clearly and confidently. You can understand everything being said to you and respond easily. This is what you're working towards, and it's entirely possible with practice. Thinking in English will get you there, and every day you spend working toward that goal brings you closer. 7. Keep the end goal in mind. The ability to think in English and speak fluently opens so many doors. Imagine the opportunities that will come your way, whether it's traveling, working in a global company, connecting with people from different cultures, or feeling confident in all kinds of social situations. English is a bridge to these opportunities. Your hard work today is the foundation for your future success. 8. find joy in the process. Learning a language can be challenging, but it can also be very fun and rewarding. Find ways to enjoy the journey, whether it's through watching movies in English, reading books, or talking to friends. Make learning enjoyable. The more you enjoy the process, the more motivated you will be. If you enjoy what you're doing, it will be much easier to keep going, even when things feel hard. Final words of encouragement. So, no matter where you are on your journey right now, I want you to remember this. You are doing amazing, and you are getting better every day. Don't rush. Don't compare yourself to others. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every effort you make, whether big or small, is moving you closer to your goal of speaking English fluently. Think of how far you've come already. Look at how much you've learned. Celebrate your progress and keep pushing forward. You've got this. Keep practicing. Keep thinking in English. And before you know it, fluency will become a natural part of who you are. Remember, fluency is a journey, and you are on the right path. Keep going. You're doing great. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends who are also working on improving their English. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and remember, fluency is just a step away. We'll be back with more tips to help you on your journey. Keep listening and keep learning.